All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Latrice Tillis, and I am an alumnus of CYC Sidney Epstein Center, formerly known as ABC back in my day. I am pleased to be here with my CYC family, members of my own family, and all of you to share my CYC story. So my first day in kindergarten at Lawndale Community Academy was also my first day at ABC. Growing up, going to the center was an extension of my day. It was my favorite part of the day, being around people who knew me best. Recently, I saw a TikTok video that talked about the importance of our third places. We have work, school, and home, but then there are third places. Third places are these special community spaces created to facilitate creative interactions. Recently, ABC was my first third place. Back then, ABC was our social media. We talked about the drama that transpired at school that day, funny commercials we watched on TV, the latest music video, 106 in Park, and cracked the latest Yo Mama jokes. Although talkative and energetic today, I was really shy growing up, but that was never really the case at ABC. Once I got comfortable with the other kids, I talked more, I laughed more, I engaged more, I raised my hand to read more, and eventually I would be begged to be in the front for all the little dances and songs that we would showcase. My years at CYC were really my time to shine. All games and fun aside, CYC was also the first place I learned to practice structure and discipline. We were only allowed free time after our homework was checked for completion and correction. The structure of having a daily routine at the center made me feel comfortable and it made me feel safe. The staff was such a huge part of that feeling. I remember my first youth counselor, Ms. King. While I'm sure all the other kids probably thought the same, I was Ms. King's favorite student and she was my favorite youth counselor. She was very sweet, caring, and prioritized making everyone feel comfortable. If Ms. King was there, I knew I was good. Mr. Mallory was another staff member at ABC. Although I was only in his preteen program for about a year or two, he had been at the center since I was 5. He was like our Tyler Perry. He was the director, the choreographer, the producer, the coach, the MC on Mike Night, and a lot more. He instilled in us the confidence to be ourselves and the importance of treating each other with respect. Outside of my home life, he gave me the tools to be a good person. All of the trips, games, and activities and show places were made possible by the CYC staff. They worked nonstop to make sure we had a great time, but that we also challenged ourselves. I took all these things for granted at the time, but in retrospect, I realized how privileged I was to gain exposure to other opportunities in light of the limitations imposed on me by my surroundings. While some of these program memories may sound trivial, the reality of living in North Lawndale is that educational and extracurricular resources and special places like CYC are scarce. My peers who did not attend CYC struggled finding safe spaces to do their homework, play basketball, explore their interests, or even develop a sense of themselves outside of school and home life. The opportunities made available at CYC are mechanisms for growth for the communities in which they serve. One event I looked forward to every year was our Heritage Bowl. It was a cultural tournament between the centers that celebrated Black and Hispanic heritage. Back then, I thought the Heritage Bowl was like the holy grail of bragging rights, Super Bowl, if you will. Almost every year, ABC won first place. but you had to be 10 years old to compete. The year before I participated was one of the first times ABC took second place. Watching from the sidelines, I just knew I was what our team needed to win that title back. When I finally turned 10, I studied that history package from front to back to make sure we were covered on every question. On the day of, I remember the nerves and the sweat building up, and I remember the last question fell on my teammate, and she answered correctly. I remember holding that trophy and yelling, "You got served," in like the other team's faces, because that movie had just came out around that time. And then I also remember being quickly reprimanded by Mr. Mallory to not be sore winners. I tell you all this story for two reasons. One, to illustrate the excitement of children having something to look forward to outside of school and home life. And two, to exemplify the importance of learning about your ancestral history and the history of other cultures as well. It's hard to gain a sense of self-pride and be proud of your culture if your knowledge is based on biased history books and the violence that plagues the community. At age 14, when I started high school at Providence St. Mel, a lot had shifted for me. At this private school, I was no longer the smartest student. Being a top performer at this school meant you stayed out of trouble first and foremost, and you stayed on top of what was a very heavy homework load. For the next 4 years, I had to rely on my toolbox of values I learned with my community at CYC to persevere through to graduation. Today, I still rely on that same toolbox. Participating in CYC programs shaped me into a well-rounded individual that I am today. I'm currently in grad school, pursuing a master's degree of arts in public policy at the University of Chicago. Thank you. And over the past 6 years, my work has been centered in community investments in banking, more specifically at BMO Harris. And by studying policy and bringing forth my knowledge of banking and community investments, I want to address the specific issues such as disengagement and racial disparities that keep communities on the west and south side of Chicago, like the one I grew up in this low to moderate income loop. Overall, case in point, I'm committed to being an advocate for young people like me with similar stories. So I hope to leave you all with the understanding of how significant third places are, especially unique places like CYC. And I really hope to see all those same hands that applauded back in the air for our paddle raise. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you for supporting my first and favorite third place.